All right, B-listers, you know the drill.
This is your official spoiler alert for the episode.
If you don't want any spoilers, stop the episode now.
And if you don't care about spoilers, hold on to your seats because this episode starts
Now. Hello, fellow B-listers.
Hi, welcome to the B Critics podcast. We're your host, Liz and Court.
And our guest critic for this episode is Matt. Hi, Matt.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
You.
So we know Matt from college. We all went to Alabama together. Matt is actually my husband's big in their fraternity. So yay. We're super excited to hear what Matt has to say about our movie today. So Matt, do you want to introduce the movie?
Liz and Court, hold on to your butts because we're doing Jurassic Park today.
Guys. Oh my gosh, I love that intro. So I take it then that you're going to be into this one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, there is.
Honestly, don't even know how we're about to try to fit this into one episode, but we're going to try. So I'm just going to give like a quick description of the movie for those of you who have never seen Jurassic Park. I don't know who you could be, but maybe you're just a Gen Zer who's younger and cooler than us. Okay, so Jurassic Park is an adaptation of the novel by Michael Chrichton. Jurassic Park tells the story of the unveiling of an amusement park filled with real-life cloned dinosaurs. In this science fiction adventure, the park's creator, Dr. Hammond, is attempting to get the sign-off on his park by 3 scientists who quickly discover that trying to control life actually creates chaos.
Bum, bum, bum.
Dang, what a log line.
I told
That's
Liz when I was
incredible.
writing that I should be a movie script writer.
Yeah.
That
was great.
Thank you. Okay, so this movie came out in 1993.
A year before I was born.
Yeah, I think it's before all of us were born, but
Yeah.
it's a pretty classic one. The director is Steven Spielberg. Big director.
He's kind of a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, and this movie is known for its special effects and its animatronics. So it actually won Academy Awards for both best visual effects and sound mixing. So that's some pretty cool stuff. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the history of this movie. I would say like the lasting effect, like the reason probably why a lot of people cling on to it.
Mhm.
Not only because it's like, a classic story, it's super entertaining, obviously, especially in the back half. But as far as like movies go, like people who are, interested in movies, the like visual effects aspect of this is like completely groundbreaking.
Yeah, it
Mhm.
changed the way that movies were made, honestly. And it's super
Mhm.
fascinating to know like how much was changed about it too, like during the filming.
Yeah, yeah, I think this had a pretty lengthy production, which is not really something that's unique to Spielberg. I mean, Jaws, they had to reshoot like a bunch of stuff. He had already brought him up, but obviously we talked about the most successful director probably ever. I mean, this movie was the highest grossing movie of all time after it came out, and it stole the highest grossing movie of all time title from E.T., which he also directed.
Yeah.
which took the crown from Star Wars, and Star Wars took the crown from Jaws, which he also directed. So it's like I mean, at this point, like he's already, he made movies throughout the 80s. And then this year, like he had made 3 of the highest grossing movies of all time. And then he comes out with this, which, is a huge hit, made the
What a
most money
guy.
ever. Yeah. And then the same year he directs Schindler's List, which wins Best Picture, and he wins Best
Mhm.
Director. So it's like, I mean, I can't think of another director who had a better year than that.
I
Ever.
have a fun fact about him directing both of these movies at the same time.
Okay.
So he actually like left the set of Jurassic Park to go and start Schindler's List. Like Jurassic Park was like being finished up, and he was like, "Well, I got to go do this now. It's my like hobby project, Schindler's List." And in
Wow.
order for him to like be directing both of them, he actually purchased time on a satellite so that he could like have all of the information sharing possible, and it cost $1.5 million a week.
Holy dude, he's the man. Oh my gosh, he's the man.
Well, enough.
Especially in this time. Now he's kind of washed. Like, I mean, The
Yeah.
Fablemans was like super good, but since like the 21st century, there hasn't been anything like nearly on the level that he's made that's like this or
Mhm.
Jaws or any of that. But that's crazy. I never even knew. I never knew that.
Mhm.
That's an insane thing to do.
I
That is
know.
The man cannot be stopped.
Yeah, well, so he's the first thing that I wanted to talk about, like, getting
Yeah.
into
Hmm.
the movie, because I think that the way the movie is filmed and directed is just really, like, unique to him, and,
Hmm.
there's so many scenes, and we'll talk about the scenes, but I just, like, love that the movie is, like, filmed actually in Hawaii, so, like,
Mhm.
Hmm.
all of the sets are incredible, um, and then the CGI and animatronics combo is, like, my favorite thing about this movie. Like, everything about the CGI is so cool because I think they were originally gonna do this movie with, like, toys, like, essentially like how they did Star Wars,
Hmm.
and then they
Yeah.
switched midway through production to doing CGI, like
Well, they
groundbreaking.
have both in the movie.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, well, they have animatronics, which is like
Mhm.
the T-Rex dinosaur, but they were gonna
Hmm.
do, like, all the scenes with, like, dinosaurs running and stuff with, like, toy models and replicas and stuff.
Hmm.
Hmm. I mean, they really run the gauntlet of like visual effects in this movie because they had brought on a guy to do stop motion animation, like you had said, Phil Tippett, he's like the godfather of stop motion animation. And like he had prepared all this stuff, and then they had, I think they're called like IM is the company that came in, and they had CGI'd rendered like footage of a dinosaur, and
Mhm,
that's what convinced Spielberg to do both. So I think it's only like there's 15 minutes I think total where
Mhm.
dinosaurs are in this movie, and I think only like 6 minutes of it are like
The
true CGI.
CGIs.
Yeah, so it's a
Mhm.
really good blend of like both. And you know, it's funny to talk about this movie now in 2023 where like everything's CGI and like the
yeah.
technology's advanced so far, but it all looks like crap now. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't look good. Like so the blending of like like practical effects and the CGI together is like why this movie ages so well. Like I mean, obviously there's some parts of the CGI where you're like, okay, that's a little rough, but
Well
like
well,
the fact that it looks like that good, like there's like one or two parts I would say where you're just sort of like, okay, you can tell this was made in the 90s, but the rest of it, it's like they're shooting on location with
Mhm.
animatronic dinosaurs blending with CGI and stuff, that it looks incredible to me. Like I,
Yeah.
I mean, watching it this week to prepare for this, like I was blown away at some of the scenes and just how good they look. And yeah,
yeah.
not to go on a rant about movies now, but like we're missing that sort of thing now, in my
Mhm.
opinion.
If you
Yeah.
watch, like, a modern Marvel movie, the CGI is
Hmm.
so bad because I think they're, like, so overworking those, like,
Hmm.
CGI effect people. Like, in Wakanda Forever, some of it looked incredibly fake. It was horrible.
Hmm.
But with this one, I think it's cool, like, the CGI was in its infancy, and so, like, for example, the scenes where the dinosaurs are running, they, like, very strategically use the panning of the camera as well to, like, hide
Hmm.
how bad the CGI is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
Can't tell.
actually modeled that scene, like, the herd of, like, the G it starts with the G, gamma millas or whatever they're called,
Yeah.
and they actually modeled that. They took the guys that were, like, building out the CGI, and they had them run across the field with their, like, hands up and stuff, and that's how they modeled it. Like, can
That's
you
so
just
cool.
imagine a bunch of grown men, like, like,
Yeah.
running.
So funny.
that's that's really awesome. And like that's just, there's no other way to say it, that like a movie in lesser hands like this than Spielberg's,
Mhm.
um, it would just be crap. And we're seeing that now because there's been what now 5 sequels, I don't know how y'all feel about the sequels or if you've even seen them, but I think they
Watch
literally all
them.
suck. Like,
Horrible. Agree.
yeah, like especially the newer ones I don't think are good at all, but Spielberg, I mean, he does end up directing The Lost World, which is the one after this, which is a ridiculous movie. But this one, I mean, like because he just knows, what he's doing and he's got such a distinct style that works so well with what this movie's trying to accomplish. And like he's got this team of incredible visual effects people behind him. Like all
Mhm.
of that just comes together with like I mean, you can have like issues I think with the plot and stuff and like the acting in this movie, but like the actual movie making of this is like top
Incredible.
notch.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
it's
Well, I think
it's
it's cool.
incredible.
I think it's cool how they like build suspense with it too, because you were saying there's
Mhm.
only really like 15 minutes in the whole movie of dinosaurs. And like if you were
Mhm.
watching a movie today, you would just be like, it would be so
Overwhelmed.
many dinosaurs. You'd be overwhelmed. And so it
Yeah.
builds suspense by like saving those special scenes for like really
Mhm.
intense moments in the movie. And I think that's cool. Uh,
Yeah, I actually, checked the time because I felt like the beginning was kinda slow, it dragged on a little bit,
Mhm.
and after the opening scene where you see them, like, bringing in the dinosaurs and one of the handlers gets eaten or whatever, after that first scene, it is 58 minutes until the next action scene. So
That's
I mean,
wow.
they
crazy.
build it up like,
Mhm.
halfway through the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. They like I think a this is probably where like I would say like opinions would differ would be like the story and the choices they make in the
Mhm,
story and like you're saying with like that kind of stuff. For me it works because like it makes this actual encounters with the dinosaurs like that much scarier. The
mhm,
one thing that I like really pointed out, which we can talk about when we do like individual scenes, but the suspense, like the first T-Rex encounter to me is like one of the greatest accomplishments like
Yeah.
in movie making.
Yeah. I agree.
And it doesn't work without Spielberg. I mean, we're
mhm.
we're talking about him like he's not to keep saying, but he's just the fucking man. Like he's so awesome. And like his touch on the story of this movie too. So like I don't know what y'all's relationship to some of his movies, but a lot of growing up, I think like if you're like our age or probably 10 or 15 years older than us, like the childlike wonder that he like implements into his
Mhm.
kind of like far out science fiction stories are kind of what attach me to all of his movies, especially since like a lot of the people in the actual movies themselves aren't like, you know, crazy like heroes. They're normally like everyday people or like
Mhm.
I mean Indiana Jones is a professor, like
Mhm.
the people in Jaws are just sort of like small town bureaucrats. Like
Mhm.
in this movie they're like dinosaur like they're dinosaur like scientists and
Archaeologists.
stuff and archaeologists, but you wouldn't expect them to be able to like run away from actual dinosaurs and
Mhm,
stuff. So like I think he does a good job of like humanizing the characters, and that's what I was talking about kind of like earlier is like the combination of like his style and the direction with the visual effects is so great.
Yeah. And he,
yeah, I saw somewhere, I think I saw this on TikTok, but he actually so the CGI is by far the best thing that had happened at
Hmm.
the time, and Steven Spielberg is, like, responsible for that. He
Yeah.
pushed those artists to make it better, to make it more seamless with the film, and when they showed him, like, the final demo of, like, "Here's what your dinos are gonna look like," everybody watching it together, one of the visual effects guys, he said, "You did it, you crazy son of a bitch," and that's in the movie. Spielberg was like,
Yeah.
"I like that," and he used it, which I thought was funny.
Yeah, I think another thing that they put in the movie, they kind of like varied it, but Phil Tippett, the stop motion guy, like when he saw the CG of the dinosaurs, said, "I'm
Mhm.
about to become extinct." I
Yeah.
think they said that in the movie too. And Phil Tippett did not become extinct. He's like still working. He directed a movie actually last year that's like batshit crazy. But
does he still do stop
um,
motion?
huh?
Does he still do like stop motion or has he just?
Yeah, so he just directed a movie last year that's like a horror movie that's completely stop motion. I
Okay.
haven't seen it yet, but the things that I've heard is, I mean, it's crazy. Um, and his work on this movie like is really important too because he could blend the animatronics using CG, and like he's just so smart that like everything just looks so good, especially for the time. Like, can y'all imagine going to see this movie in theaters and like like that first part where they show the dinosaurs? Like
And it looks
everybody
so
had to be
real.
losing their minds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. And all like the attention to detail that he does too. Like in the
Hmm.
T-Rex scene you were talking about, the water droplet in the car. Like nowadays they just
Yeah,
water droplets like CGI, but they like
yeah.
actually like had this like device in the car dash that would like vibrate the dash
Hmm.
and like make the water droplets appear. Like it's there's just so many little things that went into making this happen that I think when it came out and was like actually in theaters, it was just like probably unbelievable to watch.
And I think like his work up until this point, like kind of allowed for him to take those risks, obviously, and stuff, because like he had so many. I mean, Jaws, like that's his first, big movie, and that had a lot of like crazy practical effects, miscues and stuff with like the actual shark messing up, like the animatronic and stuff, and like just being so closely worked with special effects people and practical effects, like if you get a first time director maybe to make this movie and you're trying to do like a groundbreaking thing like this blend of CGI and practical effects, it just doesn't work. So I mean, Spielberg, whenever you want to talk about Spielberg's movies, like he's who you want to talk about. Like maybe there's other movies that he's made where like someone steals the show, but it's different with different directors. Like he's almost the star of the movie rather than the
Mhm.
people actually in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, couldn't agree more. I think this movie is spectacle, all in all, the way
Mhm.
it's filmed. The other thing I love is the score. So John Williams' score. And
Mhm.
a lot of the movies that you were listing, like Spielberg movies, he's done a lot of those scores as well.
Mhm.
He did the Harry Potter score, the Star Wars score. So like you can hear it in the way the music is. It's just like so I don't know, it makes me
Fantastic.
feel nostalgia. Like it just makes me feel some type of way when I'm watching it.
Mhm. Yeah, the score is obviously incredible in this one. John Williams like has created so many iconic movies, or like movie scores that like even if you're not a movie watcher, like you can hum them in your head.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Like this honestly, like before like the last couple of years where I've really developed a connection to this movie, where I've like really started to go back and watch more Spielberg stuff. My biggest connection to this was like going to Universal Studios and like riding the Jurassic Park rides there, and the
Yes.
score is pumped into those rides. So like I know when I like hear the score, I think of like this the score just has like it has a life beyond the movie, and I
Mm.
think that's true for a lot of John Williams
Yeah.
stuff. I mean,
Yeah, you hear the Star Wars score like immediately. Like you're thinking
You
Star
mhm,
Wars.
know.
You hear this one immediately Jurassic Park. Like there's no question about it.
Yeah.
mhm.
I'm not gonna lie, I did hear that recorder sounds like
Yeah.
Yeah.
I, like, couldn't get it out of my head. I was like, "Oh, no. This is
Well,
ruining everything."
there's the Vine, the What Are Those Vine?
What
Yeah.
are those?
Like that main theme song where they go and they see the brachiosauruses or the
Mhm.
long-necked
Mhm.
dinosaurs. I always just think of that Vine where they put the white van.
Yeah, we have to put the yeah shoes on the yeah. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. And even that, like, that just shows how much of a cultural footprint this movie has, is that like people were making vines about this movie. Like,
Like 20 years later.
yeah.
Yeah, it's been 30 years since this movie came out.
Oh
Like
God.
it stands up, you know? Like I watched it this past weekend and I was like, this is like believable. And it's interesting to me too how like the science holds up. Like I'm
Hmm.
a STEM person and like I'm not gonna lie, like when they go through the science and that little like video of taking the DNA from a mosquito and like putting in the frog RNA strands, I'm like, that is believable. Why do we not have that?
Yeah. See, what's funny about that is I wrote down, I was like, science do not care. Like, when that part, like, because there's there's a similar like just any time in any movie where they're like, this is how we make this thing happen, like they have to like get the audience keyed in. I'm like, don't give a shit, like I know why I'm here. And like that scene, like there's a part like in Avengers Endgame, they like make it a point to be like time travel's different and like this is how you actually time travel. And I'm like, I don't give a shit. Just go
I don't care.
like,
Just right,
go
just
back in
do it.
time. Like I understand why they do that. But I did also think like this sequence in the movie, like the whole science thing, I'm like, yeah, whatever. The dinosaurs exist. Like I'm glad you said it holds up because I don't pay attention at all to it. But, like, the thing that I do like is in the movie, the sequence is, like, entertaining and, like, probably actually the way a theme park would, like, introduce that, like,
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
don't know if y'all have ever been to Disney World before, but the little thing they, like, sit them in and it spins around, like, that literally is a Disney ride, like
Yeah.
Carousel of Progress that goes around and shows different little frames, and so, like, yeah, the science portion, like, I was like, "Okay, whatever." But I do think, like, this from a storytelling aspect, like, it does work really well. That's good that it holds up, though. I mean,
I mean, I'm not saying, like, I know anything about it and that it holds up. I just
yeah,
I'm watching it, I'm like, "Oh, that's believable." I would believe
yeah,
that's possible still today. I think it's cool that it's, like, 30 years old and you still feel that way.
mhm. Yeah,
I
I
thought
think
it
they
was Oh, go ahead, Matt.
I was just gonna say, I guess they probably, like I don't know how much they lifted from, like, Michael Crichton's book or whatever, like, I've
Yeah.
never read it or really even researched into it that much, but I don't know how much they lifted from the book as to how much they, like, consulted other people, like, "How can we make this exist?" But
Mhm.
Mm.
that part is one that I'm always like, "Okay, got it."
I mean, it's probably not realistic at all because they're just, like,
Mhm,
sticking frog DNA in there, but, like, just the way that they do it, I think is good because
mhm.
Mhm.
I enjoyed the science side of it, and I was like yeah, I was enthralled. I was like, "Oh, this is why don't we do this?"
Yeah, I think it's good for little kids. It gave me very much like 90s educational video vibes, like
I
Bill
love
Nye or like the Magic School Bus kind of
yeah,
thing.
Mhm.
But I mostly liked how like confident they were. They're like, "Oh, there's no unauthorized breeding on Jurassic Park. There's like this would never happen. This would never happen." You're like,
Yeah, I mean, Hammond is just like a straight moron. Like
yes.
like not a moron in terms of intellect, but like it's like his pride is makes him like the dumbest person. We can get into it like later, but
Yeah, let's get into
I
it
think
now.
I think Hammond sucks and he deserved to die. That's like my hot take is like he like the only redeeming thing about him is that he has grandkids. Like that's why they don't kill him.
But he
Just
didn't
because
even
his
Mhm.
think
grandkids
about
are in the movie.
like, the whole movie. He was like, "Oh, they're fine out in the middle of the Jurassic Park with the dinosaurs," like
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the only bad thing, like they killed the lawyer, and the only bad thing about the lawyer is that he's a lawyer. Like that's the only negative quality he kind of has in the movie is like one of the quotes I think Hammond says is like I brought all of these people here to like showcase this, and the only person who agrees with me is like the blood sucking lawyer, which
Mhm.
is so 90s humor to make like a lawyer joke, like they're the scum of the earth or whatever. But he gets eaten in like the most embarrassing way ever, like literally sitting on a toilet seat. And all that guy did was like, in fact, he's sent there because they don't trust Hammond
Yeah.
to do anything. And so like and then they kill him and I'm like, dude, Hammond is way worse than this guy. And the only
Mhm.
guy he's like not worse than is Wayne Knight's character Nedry, the computer hacker guy,
God,
God.
he was the worst.
which is yeah, he that character does not work for me at all. But
No.
You didn't think he was, like, good comedic relief for children?
yeah, he's pretty yeah, I mean, he's pretty funny, but like I don't know. I've seen like if you watch a lot of Seinfeld, he's just being what he was in Seinfeld a
Yeah.
bunch.
Yeah, I was watching with
And
my parents, and they were sitting there, like, talking what is his character's name in Seinfeld? Do you know?
Newman.
Newman. They were just calling him Newman the whole movie. So I was,
Mhm.
like,
Yeah,
very
that's what I call him too.
confused about, like, who he was.
Mhm. Yeah, his character, I mean, I think this movie needs like I guess some sort of like bad guy villain outside of Hammond because they have to give Hammond a redemption arc.
Yeah.
But everything with Nedry, I mean, he's kind of the plot driver in a way because he's the one who
Yeah.
shuts down all the stuff. And then he just gets dunked on later, so it's
I
like his
know.
actions kind of have no consequences.
I think he's kind of the, like, what if factor, like,
Hmm.
could it have worked had he not shut off all the security systems? Like,
Hmm.
he's kinda like you said, he's the plot driver. He's, like, the reason why it's all happening.
The reason why there's
Um,
a second movie.
yeah.
Yeah. Goofy characters in this movie, obviously, like
Mhm.
Jeff
Mhm.
Goldblum the entire time.
Yes.
And
Chaos
like
theory.
He was my
Jeff
favorite.
Goldblum and Wayne Knight are overacting so much in this movie
They
that Samuel L. Jackson's performance is like a straight,
underacting.
calm, muted, straight performance. Like so there's just that's another thing. Like I would say the two knocks that I have on this movie are like with the science fiction stuff just in any movie, I'm like, don't care. And then him, like his whole performance to me just is like I think Courtney, you identified like his existence and everything, like is comedic relief for kids to get them laughing and stuff. Like
Yeah.
the kids can properly identify him as like this is the bad guy, like ha ha ha,
Mhm.
like he's being a
Very
moron.
He's like his character is very 90s bad guy. Like the nerdy, overweight.
Yeah,
Like that's kind like I wonder if it would be the same way now. Probably not. But
nah. I don't think so. And I don't know, just whatever he's doing in that movie, it takes me out of it a little bit, is what I'll say.
okay. Yeah, I probably didn't pay super good attention to those parts. I mean, I've seen this movie
Hmm.
like a million times, so I know exactly what
Yeah.
happens, but I can remember as a kid like watching the scenes where he's like being chased by those little dinosaurs and just thinking it's so funny. Like, and
Hmm.
it, like, kind of gives you a break from, like, all the dark stuff that's happening at that time. So I think it's, like, it helps with the kids because it does get kind of, like, intense at certain parts. What about, like, Dr. Grant and Dr. Safner? So Sam Neill and Laura Dern.
I
Okay,
love
Laura
them.
Dern is awesome. And she looks fucking great in this movie
Yes.
too.
I
Sam
know.
Sam Neill is like he just to me in the canon of his career like is this character. Like
Mhm.
he shows up or like I was watching Pinky Blinders recently. He's in the first season of that. He's
Yep.
unrecognizable and I'm like there's
Mhm.
no way that's the guy from Jurassic Park.
Oh,
Like
good.
he just exists so much in that like blue shirt and red bandana and hat like
Mhm.
Yeah.
that's always been like I don't know how good his performance is like from an acting standpoint, but he does a really good job of like playing that everyday kind of hero. And Laura Dern's just she's just awesome and
Yeah.
everything to me.
What's wild is, they had a hard time casting this movie.
Mhm.
Like, everyone that they reached out to initially didn't want anything to do with it because it was another, like, Spielberg action movie, and they're like, "Oh, like, it's not gonna go anywhere, it's too similar to Indiana Jones," and they ended up with this, like, fantastic cast, but it wasn't, like, originally who was supposed to be in these roles.
Mhm. And it's an unlikely trio too. I feel like I mean
Yeah.
Sam Neill this year like we talked about Spielberg directing Schindler's List and this in the same year. Sam Neill is in this and The Piano, which was outside of Schindler's List, probably like the second biggest awards movie of the year. It's a Jane Campion movie. She did Power of the Dog, which won some stuff last year too. So really good year for him. I mean, I would say like most people know him from those two things, and then Laura Dern, I feel like had only been like a David Lynch actress up until this, so being in really weird movies, and then Jeff Goldblum, like who would put those three people like in a room and be the main characters? But it all works really well. Like
Mhm.
I don't know how y'all feel, but I felt like Sam Neill's character and Laura Dern were a believable partnership. Like
Oh, 100%. And
yeah.
I love too, like, Jeff Goldblum and Sam Neill, like,
Hmm.
playing kind of like it being a love triangle, but not, like,
Yeah.
just, like, enough, like, subtle enough, and it was funny enough that I think it was
Mhm.
entertaining to watch throughout the movie. Because like, you had all this crazy stuff going on, but then you had their little, like, interactions the whole
He's,
time.
like, playing with her hand. He's like, "Oh, look at the water drop on your beautiful
Yeah.
skin."
Yeah. Jeff Goldblum, I wrote down like five quotes that I like the most, and I think he says four of them. Like he is given all of the best lines in this movie. Like they basically
Fair.
just set him loose. And I would say this is another movie like most people would know him from this. Um, he was in The Fly, which is one of my favorite movies, and he's like the true lead in that. But this one, I mean, he's got the iconic look with the glasses and the shirt, and he's got all of these lines that have like stood I mean, like that one scene where he's like looking up with that smile is just like a GIF now. Like everybody uses that. Um,
Yeah.
so he like those three they work I thought really well together, and part of it I think is because Goldblum is like so charismatic that
Yeah.
he's able to drive, and he's being like 100% Jeff Goldblum in this
Mhm.
movie.
Yeah, he's doing it extremely well as his like heartthrob character. I'm loving it. Um, okay, so what about the kids, Timmy and Lex?
I don't know. The kids were tough, in my opinion. The Spielberg, I feel like normally gets pretty good kid performances, but those kid, I mean, especially the little kid, um, like he just from an acting standpoint was tough. Like I do like the whole thread of like um Sam Neill's character hates kids,
Mm-hmm.
and so like they group him with the kids, and then he like
Falls in love
learns
with
to,
them.
yeah, falls in love with them basically, which is I was thinking that this is the first time I ever thought this when I was watching it, but there's that last scene where they're on the helicopter and like they're all laying on him or whatever, and I'm like, okay, this is a little bizarre. Like these kids like I guess their parents are going through a divorce, right? And that's like why they're at
Mhm.
Jurassic Park, is to kind of like get cheered up or whatever.
Hate them
But
though. I feel like they're
huh,
probably loyal to him at this point
They've,
because
like,
yeah.
imprinted on him.
like
Yeah, so that's
after.
I was like, this is a little weird. Like this is just some guy and they're like laying on him and stuff. But I guess when you go through something like that. But that's another thing in Spielberg movies. It's not as like heavy in this movie, but a lot of his movies are about like broken homes and
Mhm.
divorce and stuff. That's like a common thread. I mean, Close Encounters is basically about his parents' divorce. And then so he had like kind of weaved that sort of stuff into his movies up until last year where he actually made a movie about his parents getting divorced and the effects it had on him. But in this movie it's kind of muted. Like you kind of have to really read in, not like really read into it, but it's not as in your face. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's obviously something that's happening in this movie too, is these kids' parents are going through a divorce, so they like latch on to a father figure, and he's never really liked
Mm.
kids, but like they he's like able to protect them, and like he kind
They
of learns
warm
something
his
about himself.
heart.
Yeah, they warm his icy heart.
As a kid watching this and like really liking Samuel's character. Like
Mhm.
Hmm.
wow, like he is such a good like dad to those kids. Like I just remember like really vibing with his character. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a good guy. Like he saves their life. Like he
yeah.
knows CPR, which is like good for
Nope.
him.
So
I
cool.
forgot
CPR is
about that.
certified, and like kid just got shot 10,000 volts of
10,000 volts.
electricity. Yeah. Yeah, I gave our friend Ross a lot of shit for saying the kid should have died. I'm like, dude, they all should have died. Like they're all carnivoric dinosaurs
Yeah, what?
chasing humans and stuff. But there are a lot of times I will say where Tim especially is like, bro, what are you doing? Like get off the electric fence. Like the daughter or the older one, I like her character actually in this because she's kind of like the little kid is like being kind of like a nerd ass kiss ass to Sam Neill's character. He's like, I know a lot about dinosaurs.
I read your book.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But the daughter or the she's just kind of like, what is all this shit? We need to get out of here. Like this is crazy.
The entire movie. Like just scream the whole movie.
Yeah,
That's like what she's there for pretty much is to like say
yeah.
things and alert the group.
Yeah, it's a Spielberg movie, so it's got to have kids in it, like I said. And
Mhm.
like they're not like terrible, but and
Mhm.
they need to be in it or else like this you won't care as much about the characters I think if they're not in it. And it's their whole cop out for Hammond not dying, so
True.
Yeah. I saw where one of them, I can't remember which one of them, did an interview like years later after the movie. And their performance was brought up because it's not like the best child
Mm-mm.
acting ever.
Yeah.
And they said that everyone on set had a really hard time because it was really the first time they'd had to interact with their surroundings when it wasn't really there. So this
Mhm.
kind of like paved the way for modern acting with CGI and all of that, where you're like interacting with, but there's nothing there. Like you don't have anything to touch, to feel, to actually look at. You're just like your imagination.
That's so interesting.
That is really interesting because that's probably like extremely commonplace now for
Mm-hmm.
most actors.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think that the girl who plays Lex is like credited in anything else. I looked up her IMDb. Like this is it. Like she's in this movie.
Damn.
It was a good one to be
Shocking.
in.
I like writing on it for life. Okay. So now let's go through the movie kind of like scene by scene. Uh
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
so we already talked a little bit about the opening scene with the dino in the cage, like kind of setting the stage. But the next one I want to talk about is the reaction to the brachiosauruses. Like when they
Mm-hmm.
drive up in their jeeps and then like that really iconic scene where Laura
He
Dern and
turns her head.
yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, that scene is incredible. It works so
Mm-hmm.
good because I think like it works so well because the characters in the movies are seeing like dinosaurs for the first time and to kind of weave the special effects in. I'm sure people in the theater, this was the first time they were seeing CGI, like, because I think the dinosaurs in that scene were completely CGI'd.
Yeah.
Um, like the turning of the camera is like sort of like a it's like to show the characters are seeing dinosaurs for the first time, but I'm assuming the people in the theater too, it's like we're gonna show you what the fuck we did in this movie to
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
make it so realistic. And
Yeah.
so like it works on like a viewer and character level. I think that's why it's so lasting too, because like, you know, the first scene you get like sort of you don't ever see a dinosaur in it and like there's a lot of suspense and stuff. So like it's until here where we finally get to see dinosaurs in a movie that's marketed on the fact that there's going to be dinosaurs in it. So like waiting, like making you wait that long and then having like not wasting that moment
Mm-hmm.
is incredible, and I think it's why this scene stands out to so many people.
Yeah. I made a note that because in this scene too, you hear the dinosaurs, right? And they're
Hmm.
loud and it's like a very distinct noise. And I just said the long neck dinosaurs made that much noise and they're just now noticing like how long have they been on this island? And like nobody heard the dinosaurs.
That's so funny. That's so true. Yeah, there's a lot of like stupid shit in this movie that I thought about. Like the complete lack of like employees that are roaming the park. I was like,
Okay. The reason is because they evacuated the island because of the weather.
oh,
Yeah.
oh yeah, that's right.
My
Okay,
mom brought up that pothole, and I was like, "No, no, no, they're all gone. That it's on purpose because they sent everyone home."
okay, okay,
Mm.
that makes sense.
Mhm.
Damn, yeah,
I didn't
because the
even
first one I
put
was
that
like, isn't this
together.
supposed to be a theme park? Maybe that slipped through. I was like, where are all the like fucking people
The
that are?
operators, come on.
Yeah, they're gone.
Um,
It's
Yeah,
bad.
that scene, that's also where we get like the "you son of a bitch, you did it" line too,
Uh-huh.
which is the very Jeff Goldblum says that, and it like like again, he gets so much awesome dialogue in this movie. He
Mhm.
gets to be like very funny, like he gets to be funny, horny, and like existential all in the same character.
And like a smart mathematician, like everything,
Uh-huh.
like all in
Yeah, the
one.
hot mathematician, which I was like, what a crazy what a crazy like character design
I
too.
loved all his like he would just interject chaos theory like every time he
Hmm.
spoke. It was like amazing. Just
Hmm.
like a nice little thread going throughout the whole movie.
Yeah, and that scene, that first reveal scene, also has the crazy music cue, which like stands out. Like when you see it, they bring the score up and it plays the
Mm-hmm.
loud theme and everything, and it
It's
just
very
works
iconic.
so well as a reveal. Yeah.
I feel like that scene is like the one scene that like really stands the test of time. Like we already
Hmm.
talked about it with the vine, but I mean, very iconic. Okay.
Yeah, it's the scene that if you had to show someone 3 minutes from the movie, it would be that, I would say.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure. Um, okay, so next we talked a little bit about the suspense, but some of the things particularly that I like the cow scene with the T-Rex where they
Hmm.
drop the cow into the pen. Um, and then also like seeing the eggs hatching when they go into the lab and the like foreshadowing of the Velociraptor imprinting on Sam Neill.
Yeah, I had a couple notes about that section. One was Hammond. I mean, he's such a moron. Like you're showing these people around that you're trying to convince that this is a good idea, and one, they break your theme park ride in like 3 minutes, and you let them get into the place where they make the dinosaurs, and then two, you just let them walk out into the raptor like captive thing. And I'm like, dude, get some security guards or like some guys that are
Or
like,
like some
this is
locks.
actually, yeah, like this is under construction. So it's like he's kind of like too forthcoming as like a theme park owner. I'm like, you need to hide some of this stuff. Like every single large scale operation like this is going to have some sort of shady element to it, and he just does such a bad job of hiding the shady element from the people that he's like literally needs to sign off for this to like go into effect.
I mean, I think
Mm.
you see him like trying, like he tries to direct them to like go certain
Yeah.
ways, but I think he just fails. Like I think he's just like
Yeah. That's what
capable.
I'm saying. Get some big guys, get some
Some
henchmen.
bouncers.
Some henchmen like to do your dirty work for you. Like have some dude named, you could call him Rex or something, and he's like
Oh.
massive, yeah, dinosaur, and he's standing by the door, and he's like, actually, you can't come through here. Like this is, blah, but no,
Thou
just
shalt not pass.
yeah, and then he's shocked later where they're like, yeah, this place is fucked, like. I don't know. The science part is really cool though because like I really like how when they're in there like all of the scientists and Hammond especially are like, I like the way that they immediately like flip the stuff on them where they're like, here's how we're doing it. Like, isn't this so great? And then like Goldblum's character's immediately like, I don't know about all that. Like this seems like a little like he's kind of like calling them on their shit like almost
Mhm.
immediately. I think that like scene works really well, partly because you have like you can see like in Hammond and the scientist's eyes, like, oh man, like we really thought everybody was gonna think this is the coolest thing ever, and like Goldblum's character immediately is like, you guys are acting like you know all of this stuff about something that no one has any knowledge of, basically.
Yeah. Um, and that so like in the next one is the hurt dino scene, but I think it's
Mhm.
interesting because Laura Dern's character is a like a paleobotanist, I guess,
Yeah,
and like how she
sure.
immediately immediately knows all of the plants. Like
Mhm.
like I
Well,
don't
she's
know
got, like, the leaf at the very like, when they first get there, she's, like, examining this leaf. She's like, "This shouldn't be here. Like, these have been extinct for however many years." And you're like,
you
put the
know.
leaf down." Like
Yeah, you're like, damn, those have been extinct for that many years, huh? You're like, yeah, that's another like that's movie bullshit right there, where they're like, there's no way they could look this up. Like,
That scene was funny though. I like
yeah,
Mhm.
it was funny, and I like the part where he's like, look at this big pile of shit or
Let me
whatever,
put my
you know?
hands in it.
Yeah, I will say
Um,
that's the animatronic for the Triceratops there looks like straight incredible.
yeah.
Like
mhm.
it looks so good.
Yeah, but
It
it's just like unbelievable that she would go up and it would just not be like scared and like react at her. You know,
Hmm.
like you would think
Yeah.
well,
a little bit more.
they should be used to people, like, they were built by people. So
That's
they
true.
shouldn't be, like, too alarmed by people. But the animatronics of this one, so the Triceratops took 12 people to operate. 12 people underneath it operating this thing,
It was not that
and
big. Like it
it
was
was
big,
pretty big.
like 12 people.
Um, the head alone took 4 people. But it was also like, originally, all of the animatronic dinosaurs were bright, vibrant colors, and
Wow.
they, like, put them on set, and Steven Spielberg was like, no, like, absolutely not. Like, this
Hmm.
is no way dinosaurs looked like this. And so that's why they're muted colors. They were gonna be like purple and green and orange and fun colors.
How to make the
What
movie
a bizarre idea. God,
with the dragon
that's
tails.
yeah, that's why you have a director right there, is for him to be like, that is what? Like, that would have been really crazy because this movie taps into like, because yeah, I don't know if y'all were dinosaur kids or not, but like,
Hasn't
kids
this
just
movie?
love dinosaurs. Yeah.
Hasn't
So
this
like,
movie, I think.
yeah, yeah, that too. And like even before then, like kids like were obsessed with dinosaurs and stuff, so they have knowledge of like what they're supposed to look like and stuff. So I
Yeah.
think like that scene where you first like you get to see one like super up close. If we're running in and it's looking
Purple.
like a My Little Pony character or something,
Lisa
then
Frank.
but yeah, then that would have been so
They
bizarre. That would have
have frogs that are like multicolors.
Yeah,
maybe.
Like
like dart frogs.
no, there's like bright color frogs.
Yeah,
They could
dart frogs.
Oh, I thought you said dark frogs.
they said dark frogs. I think there's like blue and like red, like weird color frogs. No, maybe
Yeah,
unless you.
they're all poisonous.
Yeah. Um. Okay. So next, I really want to like talk about is the T-Rex scene.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
'Cause it's amazing.
it's
Um.
so good.
Yeah. Like everything about it is good. Like
Mhm.
the initial scene, the part where Laura Dern's character comes in and tries to save them, and like it's all good.
Yeah, it's really good. This is an incredible scene. I think it's like to me the achievement of the movie because it's the
Mhm.
balance of the suspense in it is so good. The night vision goggles, which I thought were like a really cool touch. Like anytime you're watching a movie that's going to be suspenseful and they're whipping out night vision goggles, like you're screwed.
Top
Something
notch.
scary is going to happen. Yeah.
The flashlight
And
too. Oh my gosh.
yeah, it's really good, and the dinosaur in that scene looks incredible. I was
Mhm.
like, "Oh my gosh, he looks so realistic, like the way that he's moving and like popping
Mhm.
out and stuff."
It's 30 years later and it still looks like
Mhm.
so good because of the way they did it.
hmm And like the way that they build like that, it's coming like you mentioned the water rattling like those
Mhm.
loud like boom, boom like of steps and steps. You
It's
you
so
you
long.
just know something's gonna happen, like something bad, and then like once the action like finally starts, like it delivers on how scary this thing can be. And like it's kind of the first time they show you in the movie how like outside of when they drop the cow into the velociraptor pit and they just disintegrate that thing. Like this is the first time where they show you how scary and like, you know, how violent these things can be.
Mhm.
So it
Yeah.
works on that level too, of like finally establishing like, okay, maybe they're like, because they're talking about like in scientific terms, like why this place could go wrong, but this is the first time they really show you like, man, if things go wrong in this, like a lot of people are gonna die.
Yeah. The scene with
Mhm.
Timmy and the tree where they have to
Hmm.
like run down the tree. I'm like, go
Yeah.
to the side, go to the side, please.
I like when Sam Neill's character goes to like get to me and he's like sitting there and like he's looking so sad and like feeling bad about himself and he just says I threw up. And you're like, "Yep,
Mom, I
that's how a
threw
kid
up.
would react." Yeah.
Yeah.
Not worried about anything else, but it's like, "Oh no, I threw up everywhere. I'm gonna be in trouble."
Yeah.
Yeah, that
I
scene is
think it is so good, and like the parts where like it's kind of like popping out and stuff, and the goat thing,
yeah.
which a lot of animals get slaughtered in this movie in like
Yeah,
really gruesome ways. I'm like, oh my god,
including people.
yeah, and like, but that part, because at the beginning they're like, when is the dinosaur gonna actually show up? Like the goat's just standing there, and then it's just gone like in an instant, and then like the descendant or the severed horn or whatever falls on top. This movie was like a lot more intense. Like this is the first time I had watched it probably in 3 years, I think. And
Yeah.
this time I remembered I was like, "Whoa, that is like scary!" Like the severed goat horn falling on the SUV.
Well, and when they're, like, under the cars, I'm like,
Hmm.
"That guy's gonna die." Like, he's
Yeah,
going to be crushed by the car. And also, it was an ad for Lexan plastic.
Mhm.
Like the
Yeah.
oh wow.
the window roof. I was like, "How is that not breaking right now?"
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, I'm not trying to act like I would know what could withstand a T-Rex head, but I feel like a plate like windshield or whatever is getting crumbled in that
Yeah.
scenario. I mean, the thing takes down the like hut in an instant. Like,
Literally, like, it just, like, everything just, like,
yeah,
falls to the sides.
yeah.
Lawyer.
And again, like the lawyer guy who's just doing his job gets just like eaten. Like you think he might live, but in just the most embarrassing way. That's a cruel death for him.
Funny.
Like you absolutely hate to see it for him. Like he gets eaten on screen too. Like I
Yeah.
think if this is a kids movie and it isn't, like it's a kids movie because in the 90s people would take their kids to watch stuff that they shouldn't.
Mhm.
And like
I'll do that.
I saw this as a kid and I can't remember like if I was scared by that, but I mean the dinosaur literally eats a man on the screen. Like
It looks pretty
on
real.
screen, it's not like the off camera, the leaves are shaking,
Mhm.
Mhm.
Like he puts the guy in his mouth and eats him. Or she, sorry, all the dinosaurs are female.
They're all female except for the one that somehow had eggs.
Yeah.
Finds a way. Okay. So I think we can all agree, amazing scene. We could probably talk about it for a long time.
Mhm.
Hmm.
But I do want to talk about kind of like the end of the movie. So it starts really with the the breaker scene. So where like Laura Dern is dealing with the velociraptors and she's trying to get the breaker turned on. But meanwhile, you see Sam Neill and the kids like trying to get over the electric fence.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Penny being an absolute idiot, not jumping off the fence. Um,
Yeah, that whole sequence from like that, like, uh, Liz, you mentioned it earlier, but there is kind of like a pretty big like lull in the action, where the kids are like observing all the herbivores and like Laura Dern's like eating ice cream or
Yeah.
Hammond's eating ice cream and talking to Laura Dern or whatever. But then it hits a point where it's like, okay, we're off. Like this is the final sequence, and it starts
Uh-huh.
with the climbing of the like the powers off and stuff. That whole sequence to me is just riveting, like from
yeah.
start to finish. I thought it was really
So
exciting. Um,
Yeah. There
I
was, like
especially starting with the suspense of the climbing of the fence. Like
mhm.
that's not something you
You
would
just
think that all this
know.
suspense. Yeah,
Like, as soon as they look at it, you're like, "She's gonna turn that damn thing on,"
yeah,
as all 3 of them, or at least one's up there.
yeah.
yeah.
And it works well because you think all the scary parts are going to be dinosaur related, but this is
Uh-huh.
just like a complete circumstantial like horrible
Yeah.
coincidence for them too.
Yeah. I made a note too. There's one jump scare in the movie, and it's in the final action sequence. And it's when, like, after she gets everything turned on and she's like, huh, like, I did such a good job. Let me head on back now. And then the velociraptor's head just like, like straight through the
Yeah,
wall. And you're like, what?
Amazing.
Where the hell did that come from? Like, it's supposed to be over now.
yeah. And then we also in that sequence get like 15 minutes of like close-ups on Jeff Goldblum with like laying down with like his complete torso exposed and unbuttoned, and he's like oiled up too. And I'm like, this is really bizarre. Like it's really funny. This and The Fly, which I feel like are his two biggest movies, they're really pushing the like Jeff Goldblum is hot thing, which like
I think
I mean, I don't know, like they have me convinced, at least in this movie.
if I told you I went
Um,
with my parents, my mom was over there like Jeff Goldblum, and I'm like, I normally get like that, and I was like, okay,
yeah,
90s.
He's an
yeah.
attractive man.
The raptors in that part are really like they're pretty scary too. Like that part, that reminded me that part this time around of I don't know if y'all seen Alien, but there's like a part
Hmm.
there's like parts in Alien where like the xenomorph like pops out of like tubing and stuff, and it's like a really big jump scare. In this movie, like that one was really effective, and the payoff, I think it scared me because there weren't a lot, like you said, there weren't a lot of jump scares. I feel like
Yeah.
straight up in this movie, there's a lot of like suspense and action and stuff, but true like pop outs. That one, they I feel like they really cashed in on a good one with that one because it's like the immediate like, oh, the power's back on, and oh shit, there's still man-eating dinosaurs running
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
They did a really good job portraying them as, like, predators. Like,
Hmm.
these are not just, like they're not just hunting, they are, like, this is a game, like, they're you know, how
Hmm.
scary
What
they could really be.
I think they are. So, like, in the last scene where it's the velociraptors in the kitchen, that is,
Hmm.
like, my favorite scene of the movie.
It's
Like,
so good.
it's so good. And the part where they open the door and you can see them
Yeah.
open the door, I'm just like, "Oh my
Yeah, I was like,
these people
whoa.
have no hope, no hope."
Yeah, impressive. They can already like open doors and stuff. They're like really adapting to their environment. That's what I took away from that.
Yeah.
And this ties back into the blend of practical and CGI because, like, in the kitchen, I think they're all puppets or something. The
Mhm.
velociraptors are like puppets. But then in the last scene, where they're like the two that are like about to kill them are CGI. So it's like some of the
Oh,
raptors are puppets and some of them are CGI, I'm pretty sure.
Mhm.
it's so interesting because I didn't really even notice, like, a difference. So,
Hmm.
And the
impressive.
puppets are manned, like, there's people in them.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
It's
wow.
pretty wild. I'm almost 100% sure that like the one that pops out at Laura Dern is a puppet, and I'm pretty sure when they're in the kitchen, that one is a puppet too. And then
Mhm.
like when they're in the center of the welcome center where they're like all huddled together and the two are about to basically kill them, there it's CGI there. It's not a
That's
puppet.
crazy. I feel like that's, like, the moment you realize that R2-D2 is, like, played by a man that's, like, in
Yeah.
Hmm.
like, I remember having that moment, like, "Oh, wait, what?" Yeah.
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 And I
And
loved Oh, go ahead.
yeah, I was just gonna say the cool payoff of this movie is the T-Rex. What
Win.
a G at the
What a
end.
G.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a cool guy. Like saving like they build him up as like, I guess there's been a lot of bad T-Rex PR in the past. But in this movie, they're like, hey, maybe they're not so bad.
He redeems himself.
Yeah.
I made a note too. It just says the very dramatic moment when the "When dinos ruled the earth" banner falls on the T-Rex at the end.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so
The
Yeah.
final ruin.
okay.
Yeah.
So, we've gone through the movie. Matt, is there anything or Elizabeth that we've, like, forgotten to talk about that we need
Okay,
to
well, I
mention?
wrote down 5 quotes that I think are the best. They're my 5 favorite quotes in the
Let's
whole
hear
movie if you guys want to
Let's
hear
do
them.
it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the first one that I wrote down is so 4 of them I think are Jeff Goldblum, yeah. So the first one he says genetics powers the most awesome force the planet's ever seen, but you wield it like a kid who found his dad's
Oh,
gun. I
yeah,
was like,
that's a good
hell
quote.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
a cool thing to say.
He's
And
a
then the
pretty
next
good
one,
too.
yeah, is really famous where he says your scientists are so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think they should. I mean, that's
Mhm.
to me the theme of the whole movie.
Yeah,
Like,
ethics.
yeah, like they're doing this thing and it's a great achievement and they've done it, but they haven't thought about the consequences of it like at all. And then in like very like stupid fashion, they're trying to monetize it. Like
That's
Mhm.
why
that's a
it's
bad
so
idea.
good because it's, like, not just a dinosaur movie, it's also, like, a moral dilemma movie. Like, it's
Yeah.
very well done.
Yeah. The next one I have is Samuel L. Jackson saying, hold on to your butts, which he says twice, I think. And one of the reasons why I like this is because I feel like now Samuel L. Jackson saying this line, he'd be like, "Hold on to your butts," but in this movie, he's just like, "Hold on to your butts," and it just works. It's like that, like I like it because it's like, does he just say that like all the time, like this, like
It's
because
so
he's just saying
funny.
it so matter of fact. Um, and then the next one I had was God creates dinosaurs, God destroys dinosaurs, God creates man, man destroys God, man creates dinosaurs. I was like, that's really fucking cool. And then the last one's my favorite one is if the Pirates of the Caribbean breaks down, the pirates don't eat the tourists.
One.
That so four of those are by Goldblum. I think Spielberg definitely recognized that like Goldblum has such a unique line delivery,
Mhm.
and these are some like really ridiculous lines that I've just said. Like they're either very existential, scientific, or they're just like funny quips. And they're like, we've got a guy here that can uniquely make like these ridiculous things blend from both a
Yeah.
comedic standpoint and an
Mhm.
existential standpoint.
Yeah, he's just so chill when he says them. You're like, "What?
Hmm.
What? Did you just Okay."
Okay.
Yeah, so those are my favorite ones. I wanted to point those out because like this movie has some like really good dialogue in my
Yeah.
opinion, like
it is.
compared to like an action movie that you would talk about. They're really like breaking down and talking about like you said the moral dilemma of like the park. Like
Yeah.
normally it would just be like, oh yeah, the park like it exists and now the dinosaurs are trying to kill y'all because something went wrong. But they're really like having an intellectual discussion in some of these scenes about like why it exists and why it shouldn't exist.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then you got funny awesome lines like hold on to your butts.
Amazing. Okay. So now we're gonna rate it. Now that we've talked about
Okay.
it.
Uh-huh.
So, as a reminder, we use letterbox rating 0 to 5 stars. Matt, give us your rating.
Okay, so I'm giving this a 4.5 star rating, not a
Oh.
true five. Um, because like there's a couple of parts that take me out like of it, I think that knock it down a
Mhm.
notch. Like I think some of those lulls do work, but Elizabeth, like you said, like the high highs of this movie are so high and so riveting that like even though the like lulls contribute to how memorable those are, they're still you know, a little like long and then like, like I said, the whole kind of scientific explanation and Wayne Knight kind of knock it down, but not too much. Like it's still nearly perfect in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. I gave it a 4.5 star too. And like for a lot of the same reasons. Like
Mhm.
love the movie. Some of the acting is bad. And that's really the reason that I knocked it to 4.5. Because I kind of could see through that. But otherwise, amazing, holds up 30 years later.
So,
Oh no.
I gave this movie 2.5 stars. I I just it just is not my cup of tea. It was
Mhm.
slow. Like, if I'm gonna watch an action movie, like, I wanna watch an action movie.
Mhm.
And there was good parts, but I mean, the fact that I literally, like, timed how long between the action scenes, and it was almost an hour.
Yeah.
I literally Hayden was sitting, like, in the room. He was working, and I was watching this movie, and I was like, "Hayden, nothing's happened yet." And he's like, "Elizabeth, can you just enjoy the movie?" But anywho, so I gave it 2.5 stars, which is, like, exactly halfway. So it's a good movie. It's just, like, it just didn't make the hump into, like, a great movie for me.
That's fair.
Yeah. Yeah, I
I
think
feel
I think that's a fair criticism of it um like especially like I said, like the action scenes in this, I feel like are so riveting that like maybe if someone were not to like this movie, like they'd be turned off by like how much exposition there might be, like setting like the setups, and then also like
like
the stuff with Sam Neill and the kids like can be a little like
cheesy.
I find those parts like kind of charming and stuff, but like they do take you out of the like okay, where are the dinosaurs that are trying to kill him? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, and I also think too, like, part of the reason that I really like it is the nostalgia factor. Like, this was
Mhm.
my favorite movie as a kid. Like, I loved it, and I still love it.
Mhm.
It's probably my favorite movie today still. But I think a big piece of it is just because I loved it so much as a kid. Like, I think I could never not love it in that way.
You can't let it go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel the same way about a lot of movies. Like there are definitely worse movies than this that I've given 5 stars, and there are definitely better movies than this that I've given, lower ratings, I feel like, but it's just
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a classic. Spielberg's the man, as I said.
Agreed. Okay. Well, I think that pretty much wraps up our discussion. I'm sure we could just like keep talking about it, but
Mhm.
um yeah, I think it's time to wrap up. So, Matt, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on.
Yes, this was
Uh,
such a good time.
Yeah,
yeah,
thanks. I had a great time. I love talking about, movies and especially
yeah,
ones like this.
yeah, this is a great one. So it was great to have you on. Thanks for all your takes and your jokes and we're holding on to our butts as best we can.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, so now we are going to talk about our season 1 merch giveaway.
Mhm.
So we're doing a merch giveaway, a couple merch giveaway. Liz is wearing the sweatshirt or one of the sweatshirts. So you can go to our Instagram for full details on how to enter the giveaway. But it'll be something like trying to get you to write a review on the podcast or subscribe to the podcast. So yeah, check us out. You can find us on our socials on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at B Critics Podcast.
Yes, and thank you so much again for checking us out. We'd appreciate it if you could leave us a rating or review. And if you're loving what we're doing, subscribe and follow. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts.
And check out our website, bcritics.com, or you can find all of these links on our link tree in the episode show notes. All right.
All right.
Thanks for listening, guys. Bye.